It's 11 o'clock. I'm going to get started. At 11:45, we're going to wrap up because there's another group coming in here right at that time. So I've asked our proctor to kind of give me a little wiggle room, keep those guys out till I finish up. Thank you for joining me. My voice is not at its best today, so if you need to move up to hear me better, since I don't have a microphone, please do so. And my talk is Recipes for Digital Accessibility and Inclusion Success. I'm Jill Walters. I'm the Web Standards Program Manager at UCSF within the IT department within a team called Web Services. So that's where I am at. And when I started in this position about a year and a half ago, it was right before the Site Improve rollout to all the campuses at UC, all 10 campuses. And Site Improve is an accessibility scanning tool, and it's also a training resource, and much more. So today's previous knowledge prerequisite was awareness of the UC policy for digital accessibility. Who's aware of this policy? All right, good. I don't expect you to be intimately familiar with it, just that you are aware of it. And our scope today is mostly about digital accessibility for public-facing websites, because that's the group I'm in. And the takeaway for you are recipe ideas for your campus, for anyone that's a Site Improve administrator. Do we have anyone that's a Site Improve administrator? Site Improve user? Great. Those that create content for any public-facing websites, and anyone that is a manager of these type of roles. Do we have anyone that's like a manager type? Okay, great. And I know there might be some of you that are with the library, possibly any of those library types. Educational learning system. Okay, great. So there should still be enough tasty tidbits for everybody to walk away from. Hi, welcome. You'll notice I mentioned public-facing websites. It's a bigger audience than just our students or our staff, and that's where the greatest threat of web accessibility lawsuits exist on our public-facing websites. There's also different kinds of content that we put on the web. So if you guys want to help me name some, besides web pages, we've got, you said it, PDFs, images, video, web apps, email. A little bit about email. One of my pet peeves is an email that's all an image and I can't capture the text. And we have a blind consultant come in, and I said, what if you got this email and it said he could only read the subject line because that was text, and that was about a fire alarm drill, and the rest of it was an image, and he had no idea when this alarm would sound, if it would really be the test alarm or if it would be something real. And he's blind and he can't hear it. So if he hears it, you know, your first instinct is to run. But if it's a drill, you're not getting that information from that kind of email. So want to make sure people remember that about email as well. So it's our legal responsibility to make sure all of our content's accessible. And the legal responsibility can be very daunting, because each website individually could be a target. You know, the library could get a lawsuit, or the IT could get a lawsuit. And at the university level, like you all know, it's all very decentralized. So we have different departments doing their own thing, and lots of different content editors that we have to try and wrangle and provide this information to. Our UC policy incorporates state laws, federal laws, ADA, 508, and of course the WCAG, Web Content Accessibility Guideline Standards. So pay close attention to the recipes I share later about documenting your efforts, because good faith efforts can go a long way if you're threatened with a lawsuit. This is about the idea of baking accessibility into your organization. We wanted to create a culture change. So like during the RFP process, if you're buying software apps, you want to make sure that you ask if there's, the system is accessible, and if they say yes, don't just stop there. Don't take their, take their word as a grain of salt type of thing. So, welcome. So during the RFP process, like I said, for learning management system, content repositories, anything like that, they may state that they're accessible, but go ahead and challenge that and test for it and see if those claims are actually legit. So if we start early in the process of baking things in, we can start, we can also start using automated tools, and then we can start using manual checks. And so it's so much easier just to bake accessibility in at the beginning than to try to retrofit later. Later on, there's more cost involved, extra resources like time and money. So we want to say do it right the first time if you can, or at least take that approach. So make it a best practice to do a thorough accessibility check. Also, if you're inheriting a website, that happens a lot. People come and go, and you're stuck with a website that you have to maintain, and a good place to start is see if that's accessible. So as we try to bake accessibility in at UCSF, we began collecting recipes for how we could approach this and build our own cookbook. Recipes from the UCSF cookbook include many things from our test kitchens. We have the IT governance starter. We have the stakeholders warm appetizer. We have document good faith efforts, good housekeeping, hosting local events, and a communications combo recipe. So as I share these with you, think about which ones you might want to try and serve up at your campus. I hope the recipes that I share will inspire you to bake digital accessibility in at your campus. Oh, I just read these off to you. These are the recipes. These are kind of to whet your appetite, leave you wanting more, and hopefully you can act on some of what you've learned today. I encourage you to try our recipes, adjust it to your taste, and build your own cookbook. So recipe number 1 is the IT governance starter. Does anybody have IT governance in place at their campus? Okay, this was new to me since I'm new to UCSF. I was happy to see this kind of structure in there. So we have a steering team with about 8 or 9 committees underneath that. And one of those is the Web Governance Committee. And there is a roadmap funding cycle that happens every 2 years for any projects that are 6 months to 3 years long. And the yield was, first, we hired a digital accessibility specialist on a temporary basis, and they built our digital accessibility website. And that proved the point that we do need this kind of staff person. So it led into a full-time job, and I was lucky enough to be hired for that position. So my position was already in place in time for the Site Improve rollout. That was something that my supervisor really wanted to have in place because we've put these kind of tools out before. And he wanted a dedicated person. So the conclusion was, bringing this proof of concept idea to the table gave us an opportunity to get that funding to create this new position. So that was a new culture change for us at UCSF. So now that we have staffing in place, thanks to the IT Governance Committee, let's move on to the next appetizer, next recipe, the warm appetizer. And the second recipe is our stakeholders' favorite recipe. Just like any event, when you plan for a large event, you want to have a good set of recipes. And certain groups of people have their favorites. And for example, the picture I have on board was a favorite at the kids' table during our family parties. Pigs in a blanket, fresh out of the oven. But back at the campus atmosphere at UCSF, our stakeholders' favorite was something a little different. And by stakeholder, I mean anybody that is involved with the website, whether you're the manager, the owner, the content editor, the designer, the developer. And warm is the key word here. we didn't want to do what we had done in the past, like, oh, here's an accessibility scanning tool, catch, good luck, have fun with that. You might get sued, but we got a tool, you're good, right? So we didn't want to leave people hanging. This approach doesn't always work. Basically, there were key ingredients were missing. And so if a dish fails, the first thing you want to look at is, are you missing any key ingredients? And our missing ingredient, the bottom line, was basically communication. We are doing something now that we didn't do before. In the past, we didn't communicate specifically what those expectations were of the stakeholders. Now we tell them, it's your legal liability, you need to be responsible for it, and that you will be held accountable if, you know, if somebody brings up an accessibility barrier to your attention. And you'll be responsible for providing an alternate way to provide that, and ultimately producing maintainable, accessible content in the long run. Then the other missing communication piece was support. Sometimes they're not given any support. This time they were. And we really wanted to add kind of that warm and fuzzy feeling to support, so people just didn't feel left out in the cold. So we reworked the original appetizer recipe, and our yield for that was a 1-hour informational meeting that I give once a month. So once we gathered the missing ingredients and the part about warm, we would meet face-to-face with the top, I'd say top 13 sites that were high traffic, and we would meet with that stakeholder group face-to-face, get them all around the table, and tell them what those expectations were, and that we're trying to create a culture change, and then we would explain our support model. We wanted them to really embrace our tool and let them know that there's a dedicated resource, and encourage others to embrace the journey. So after the warm appetizer, this is kind of the takeaways for the stakeholder. We wanted them to think, feel, and do these particular things. We want you to think and know that you are aware of the legal risk, understand it impacts your workflow. It might be extra work. It might be a different way that you do things, but know that you need to remove those digital barriers. And then we want you to feel that you're making a positive difference in the world. I really don't like to pound on the point about legal liability. I really like to tell people it's a human rights issue, and everybody should have access to the same content. So if you do that kind of thing, hopefully you feel like you're making a positive difference. And then when the actual do part is utilize the dedicated support resources that we have. So that's the Training Academy through Site Improve. That's my help at the campus level, and continually monitor your sites and improve your site. The next recipe is document your good faith efforts. The courts love this one. So recipe 3 includes monitoring progress on your sites. And if you use Site Improve, there's a progress chart that will show how your progress is against a timeline. So when your site first goes into Site Improve, from that day forward, it collects data and an accessibility score. So we like to have people get that score up and maintain it high. And we were not expecting people to meet 100% compliance, but show that good faith effort. And that's what the courts want to. An interesting question, when I gave one of these speeches at my campus, somebody raised their hand with a question in the audience and said, so some of those sites that have web accessibility lawsuits, what was their Site Improve score? I'm like, interesting. I have no idea. I have no idea if they were even using that tool to make that measurement. And next of all, the court isn't going to be looking at Site Improve scores. Anybody that's done some accessibility work knows that you can kind of rig the system if you wanted to. You can bring your score up to 100 and still not have an accessible site. So we want to make sure that people are putting good faith efforts out there. Yeah, so 100% score doesn't matter to the courts. They don't even care that you use Site Improve. They just want to know if somebody's raised an issue, that there's a barrier, that you are taking good faith action to help them get what they need. So a little bit more about what you can document is inventory reports that you can pull out of SiteImprove. So say maybe video captioning is a big thing that you want to concentrate on. You could pull a report out of SiteImprove that will list all of the video and media on your site. Bring that into an Excel spreadsheet, add a couple columns, maybe one column for I'm checking to see if there's captions, another column for the accuracy of the captions. So something like that, that's another piece of documentation you could take to court to help show your case that you're trying to make a good faith effort. And the training inside of SiteImprove called the SiteImprove Academy, you can see everything that you've started and everything that you've completed, and you can collect badges and awards. And so that's something else that can be documented and shown and shared. And then managers can also refer staff to the Academy for any kind of staff development. I've even had some folks say, I'm going to actually put that in my performance review, that I want to say I want to bring my score up, or I want to show that I've gone through all of our videos and everything has captions. So a lot of people are using this kind of documentation for their personal growth as well. So does everybody know what I mean when I say the acronym CYA? That's kind of what documenting your efforts is. So also, if you're a user and we have like a screen reader consultant come in, if you can document that you went to that session, or that you had somebody look at these particular pages as a sample of your site, that's a good thing as well. Collect your Academy course certificates. Keep a log of any kind of events that you attend, whether they're virtual webinars that may be from WebAIM or from another university or UsableNet. These are just some of the industry leaders out there that do a lot of webinars. Keep track of that. That will help show that you're trying to learn and stay focused on the industry and what's going on. And another thing the court loves is knowing that you have tested your content with a variety of people. So not only do we bring in someone that is a blind expert screen reader, we also try and tap into some of our local coworkers. So for example, if you look around when you get back to your offices, see if there's somebody that's using screen magnification, or see if somebody has turned on a high color contrast for their monitor. That might give you a clue that they are using assistive technology, and maybe they can help you with testing some of your things. So test with a wide variety of people. Just because we bring in a screen reader expert, and he's expert on many different kinds of screen readers, everybody uses them differently. Everybody has a different style. So test a lot and try and document those efforts. Show like, this is what he found, this is what I'm going to work on. He came back, this is what he said was fixed. That helps a lot. So next recipe is about good housekeeping. So with SiteImprove, there's a couple things you can do. It will track the inventory of your page. You want to make sure that page count is correct. When I first looked at the page count for one of my sites, I really had no clue. I was so new to the site that I was starting to manage that I didn't know, are there 40 pages? Are there 80? And this is part of the calculation in your score from SiteImprove. So you want to kind of make sure that's accurate, clear some things out. You can apply what's called exclusions. For example, we have a website, neurology.ucsf.edu, and it was actually pulling in some issues and reports for pages with a very similar URL called pdcenter.neurology.ucsf.edu, but they were maintained by totally different teams. So we applied an exclusion so they were looking at exactly what they needed to look at. Another good housekeeping tip is to enable CMS deep linking. So that's your content management system. We typically have Drupal users. We also have WordPress users, but that's just a quick shortcut link to go from SiteImprove to your CMS to address an error. And then you also want to verify that the priority script is added. It's the same script for everybody in SiteImprove through UC. So if you've ever done Google Analytics and you put a piece of script in, it's that same kind of deal. And that will help prioritize issues so you know, hey, let's target those pages that have the most hits. And then some accessibility tasks that you can do in there is apply appropriate decisions. And I say appropriate because, again, you don't want to game the system and just apply decisions, which is basically a switch to say, hey, site improve, stop looking at this particular issue. So it can be a legitimate reason or it can be a non-legitimate reason. So I like to tell people, don't take decisions lightly. One that we particularly do at UCSF, which we had a lot of discussion about and we felt this was going to be cool to do, is UC's accessibility policy only covers level A and AA of the success criteria of the UCTech standards, but it does not go up to level AAA. So does everybody know a little bit about those levels? Level A is like the must do, AA is what you should do, and AAA is the highest level accessibility, but it's tough to reach that. I'm really happy when I hear a story like, oh, we made our color contrast up to the AAA level. It's like, all right, guys, that's great. But since it's not part of our policy, we've decided to go ahead and flip the switch to turn those off so they're not calculated in our scores. The next recipe is for hosting local events. And I have a link to my website that you can all follow, or I'm going to show you a couple screenshots because I never know if I'm going to get an internet connection when I present. So I'm basically kind of a team of one for the accessibility, so I can only manage to do 2 monthly events. I do a lot of one-on-one work as well. But the first event is what we call the Site Improve Accessibility Kickoff Meeting. It's 1 hour, it's informational. It's to help people onboard because the onboarding process is actually really simple. If you can get somebody in front of a computer and get them to the right URL. And we talk about the Training Academy, and I show them a little bit about that. Talk about the dedicated resources of the Training Academy and what Site Improve can do and what I can do to help them. And so that first meeting is kind of appropriate for all stakeholders. It's not anything hands-on. You don't have to know any code or anything like that. So that's getting some good traction. And then the next thing that I do is accessibility office hours once a month. And I flip-flop who my special guest is. I told you about our screen reader consultant. His name's Mark Sutton. And he comes every other month. And we have people come in and get a couple pages from their website read, and he'll give them feedback if there's any barriers like JavaScript pop-ups, or that's been one, a field, or sorry, let me back up, like a form and the form fields aren't correct and he can't tell, like, am I in the address or am I in the name field? And he'll give feedback so people can go back and correct those. And then on the other opposite months, I have Nick Dahlman, who's our Site Improve rep. He appears virtually for us for the last hour, and that's more of a hands-on session where we're doing, automated, Site Improve gave us some automated issues that we have to figure out how to address. So the one with Nick is more automated, and then the one with Mark is more manual. So the courts also love to hear that you're using some kind of automated tool and that you are doing manual checks either yourself or with some people that actually use assistive technology. So this is a plug for Nick. He's busy at his booth right now, but he is available for all of us at UC. So tap into him if you want to create some kind of event and have him attend virtually. That's what he's there for. The last recipe I have is the communicators combo. So me being a team of one, I'm trying to think, how can I get more people to come to these events that I'm hosting? And what we found out was, if we add these ingredients together, we had 1 communications plan, I had 2 communicators, and a handful of campus communication contacts that I wasn't quite aware of, like who do I go to make a poster for Global Accessibility Awareness Day, or who do I go to, to get a digital sign put up. And my communicators helped me find those avenues. And then we also used analytics for the first time to start tracking our attendance. So me and the two communicators, we would have weekly check-in meetings just for like 30 minutes for me to say, like, I'm stuck with this, what do I do? Or they were the ones that said, try that think, feel, do approach. Even if you don't say that out loud, kind of keep that message in mind when you're building an event. What do you want people to take away? And we also did routines for my monthly events, so I had a schedule. I would send out reminders like a week before, and that's the way I would, publicize on a shoestring budget. And they also would point out the obvious to me. So when we were getting ready for Global Accessibility Awareness Days, I'm like, what do I need? I need you guys to brainstorm and help me. And one of them said, bring your business cards. I'm like, I didn't know I could get business cards printed. And I have some up here if you'd like to take one. But I'm like, okay, great idea. The obvious, I didn't even think of that. I'm like, hand it out at every event. Okay. And they also said, start tracking some of the things that you do. Another free idea that they gave me was I changed my email signature after every event and put the new one in there. So every time someone gets an email from me, it's also easier for me to say, like, oh, that question is probably going to be answered at the next accessibility office hours. Check my signature below for the time and date and the sign-up form. So that worked out well. And my communication partners are Vanessa and Tanya, and Tanya is here presenting this for this conference, but they were the two people that helped me. We started in January, and there's that poster, they told me about where to go get a poster printed, and they said, we'll be at the welcome table, and we'll welcome people to your event. And so this is at the Parnassus Library. And in the back, you can see a couple people at a stand-up station, and they're doing the no mouse challenge. And then in the back of the room, we had our screen reader demos. We had another table set up to show people accessibility on their portable devices. So we had phones and tablets and that kind of thing. So we really, I was so thankful that I had this partnership with them. We also partnered with a library liaison that helped us with the facility, and she also did a little bit of the library marketing and would always include our event in there. So I would say, teaming up with people, this is a really good thing. They're both in IT, and so they were available to me. I just didn't know to reach out and make that partnership. And then, like I said, we started using analytics to track what we were doing. So this is a little screenshot of how did you hear about this session? And these are the various ways that we thought people were hearing from us. So the first 4 listed things are what we call the traditional channels. This is what my supervisor said, oh, I always do chatter posts, and I always send things out to the listserv. I'm like, listserv, really? You guys still use listservs here? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, okay. So I did what he did. And then we realized, oh, people are also finding out about this through other ways, word of mouth. And it could be either like, well, my manager told me to come, or my coworkers came last time and said it was really great. So, word of mouth, either hardcore or from a colleague. We have a website's blog, and we were doing quick little articles on that, usually only about once a quarter. We would also try and always verbally mention at other events, like, hey, did you know we also have a Site Builder Quick Start Lab, or I'm doing another kickoff meeting next month. And then at Global Accessibility Awareness Days, since we had some traffic in there, we were wondering if people were coming in from that. And then we also have the word other. So we tried to pull some metrics from that over the last 6 months. It turns out listserv is the one main way that people get the information from me. So I'm definitely going to continue to do that. It's pretty easy. I just take the same template and plug in a different date each month, and it doesn't take me much time. The next one is other. So now we're like, other, What could other be? We're going to have to put a little text box under our thing that says other so we can get an idea of what that might be, because we have no clue. And then word of mouth, we might also want to tailor that down too and find out, was it a manager, was it a colleague? And chatter, which is kind of like an internal discussion board. That's one of our traditional methods. I would post there. Turns out we're not getting a lot of people coming from there. I'm guessing it's maybe because the listserv send out the email, and if people aren't sending those emails to their junk folder, they're seeing them. But the chatter post, if you're not going into chatter every day or getting an email digest, you might not hear about us through chatter. And other web services events, only 5%, but still that's good to know. And then our blog only brought in one user, 1%. So it's like now we're going to have a discussion. Do we abandon the blog or do we enhance the blog? So for the communications combo review, the think, feel, and do for the takeaways is just about creating internal partnerships. I think it was the best thing for me because I was pretty new to UCSF and they helped me find who I needed to talk to. And just also feel that you can create these mutually beneficial partnerships and continue to monitor efforts to ID channels that bring in the most attendees. That's what we're going to focus on now. So in my mind, I think the accessibility and communications partnership was a great sensation. Reminds me of the key scene from the movie Ratatouille when Remy took one bite of cheese and fireworks went off, and then took another bite of a strawberry and experienced that sweet sensation, and then he takes a bite of both of them and explosion and upbeat swirl of flavors and creates fireworks in his mind. And that's what I felt like it was when I partnered up with our communications people. So I hope these recipes have whet your appetite and leave you wanting more. I hope you act on what you learned today and build your own cookbook. I'm not done yet. I'm not done yet. So which recipes would you want to try and why? Since I don't think we've got enough time to really break into groups, but did anybody have like a favorite takeaway that they think they might want to give a shot at? Yeah.
I was 5 minutes late, so I really apologize. Your question, what I'm about to say, may have been answered in the beginning. I'm really interested in recipe 2, which is when you're talking about sort of how you did your outreach. So setting up the warm advertising, explaining to the stakeholders their legal responsibility. I think that's very important. But I actually have a question about that. I'm hoping you can answer. So these are all sort of public websites. They're not instructional websites for classes, right?
Right.
So for the public websites, the legal responsibility is on the creator of the website, the faculty member who sponsors it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know if that's the same for stuff that's used in courses?
I'm not positive. Is it Seth? No, Seth's right there. We were talking about the.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you guys colleagues or not? But okay, yeah. So yeah, my whole thing was more about public-facing websites than learning management systems. So I'm not sure. I would think, and if anyone knows different, the person that's putting the content in is the creator, and they need to be responsible. And the learning management system might be the one that gets reprimanded, maybe. I'm not sure how it works in that environment.
If it came to a legal question, University of California as a whole would be at fault. With instructional material specifically, what we usually is rely on the accommodations. So send people to your Office of Students with Disabilities and let them do the accommodation. But ideally, faculty would be making stuff in a way that's accessible from the start, so that's not necessary. Because a lot of it is behind a password, student login to get in, it's usually not highest priority item to fix. We'll fix stuff publicly first because we're more likely to get the student on that. But the right thing to do is make it all accessible.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for me, like the improving outreach and really communicating that with faculty, these are your responsibilities. And I liked how you said it's not just a legal responsibility, you have an ethical responsibility. You are making the world a better place for everybody.
Right.
Design all this stuff. So,
Oh, good, thanks. Yeah, and I think it ties into like our overall UC higher goals. You know, as a public institution, we want to spread knowledge and provide care if you have health at your campus. But basically, we want to, you know, serve everybody and serve everybody equally. Yeah. So thanks for that comment, and thanks for chiming in, Chris. Anybody else have any recipe that they think they'd like to? Yeah, please.
Well, I'm a developer, so I've been doing accessibility testing for years, but I've never considered documenting it. So I really like number 3. I'm gonna try to start doing that.
Great. Yeah, thanks for sharing. And did you have one too?
I have a question around number 4. Under good housekeeping, you mentioned something about CMS deepfaking.
Yeah.
Can you shed some more light on that?
Sure. It sounds really convoluted, but it's really very simple. It's just when you're in Sign Improve and you're looking at an issue and it says this page has this issue, it provides a link to open up your CMS and take you to that page. Exactly. And that's all it does. It takes you to the correct page. It doesn't fix your code for you. It doesn't touch your code. Sign Improve doesn't touch your code at all. It's just a quick thing. It's you know, instead of, you're going to log into Sign Improve, you're going to log into your CMS, and if you like to just do 2 screens and, you know, bounce back and forth between the 2, you can do that. Or you could take that one little extra click and this will just open that up for you, and you don't have to navigate to that page. That's basically what it is. Yeah, for sure.
Question.
Yeah.
Also, I think in that recipe was a bullet that said priority script.
Oh, right. So priority script, that is really similar to like a Google Analytics script. And what it does is it tells you how many page views you have to help you prioritize what you want to work on first. Yeah.
Sign Improve has a for purchase analytics platform that's apparently comparable to the paid premium Google Analytics. The priority script is kind of a simplified version of that, which is included in our existing subscription. So, and it's the same piece of JavaScript code that is in either case. It's just a matter of whether or not your site is part of the paid analytics or not.
Yeah, and if it's not, it still prioritizes the page views for you, so you can. You know, when I first got into Sign Improve, I was very overwhelmed with the report and everything that it showed, and a lot of our users are too. And a good place to start is let's work on some issues that we see across thousands or hundreds of pages and tackle that. Yeah, good questions. Another question, yes.
I have a question actually. You were talking about good housekeeping.
Yeah.
I'm actually just a website project manager, but we're going to be using Sign Improve on our new website. Use it to remove the AAA errors from the score calculation, that AAA being sort of the most highest attainable accessibility corrections that you could do. Is that correct? You're saying to remove that from the calculations? And give any examples of what that kind of thing?
Sure. So like color contrast ratio at the AA level, it's lower, and at the AAA level, it's even higher. So UC policy, if you look in the UC policy, it will tell you in reference to WCAG, the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, that we need to comply up to the AA level.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I think the AAA level is really hard, and it will constrain your design choices on what type you can use on your site.
That was my
And-
next question.
Yeah, so that's why we're only the AA level, is because it's incredibly difficult to make a site look like you're going to want it to look if you're trying to do that.
Yeah. Somebody has done it though. We were in a meetup.
Possible.
Yeah, in a meetup yesterday, and Brian Wolf from UCSB showed us his color palette and how it was accessible. Yeah.
My Some, correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding also of AAA is that there are some areas where it's just impossible to reach AAA and still keep inserting media. Or is
That's probably true.
okay.
Yeah. And that's, yeah, these are probably some of the reasons why you see.
AAA is the most difficult to attain, and it affects a fewer number of people. For example, most of the stuff that affects somebody who's blind or deaf will fall into A or AA. There's some AAA items as well, but for those that are both deaf and blind, those usually end up in AAA. So it's a lot harder to do those, and so it affects a smaller number of people. There's still good things to do, but it's just not going to be the first thing you work on.
Right, yeah. So in closing, I want to thank you all for participating and sharing what you think you would like to maybe, what recipe you'd like to try at your campus. And remember, you know, adjust season to taste, because every campus is a little unique and a little bit different. And you might have to tweak your recipes once in a while. But thank you for your attention. And here's my contact information. If you guys are on Slack, the Site Improve and the accessibility channels, you'll find me on, and Chris and a lot of people. And we invite you to join that and participate so we can talk as a system instead of just within our campus. Thank you all again. Appreciate it.